يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا ويطاف عليهم بآنية من فضة وأكواب كانت قوارير من فضة قدروها تقديرا صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ممتحنة امتحنك الله الذي خلقك قبل أن يخلقك فوجدك لما امتحنك صابرة وزعمنا أن لك أولياء ومصدقون وصابرون لكل ما أتانا به أبوك صلى الله عليه وآله وأتى به وصيه فإنا نسألك إن كنا صدقناك إلا ألحقتنا بتصديقنا لهما لنبشر أنفسنا بأننا قد طهرنا بولايتك السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله، السلام عليك يا بنت نبي الله، السلام عليك يا بنت حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا بنت خليل الله، السلام عليك يا بنت صفي الله، السلام عليك يا بنت أمين الله، السلام عليك يا بنت خير خلق الله، السلام عليك يا بنت أفضل أنبياء الله ورسوله وملائكته، السلام عليك يا بنت خير البرية، السلام عليك يا سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين، السلام عليك يا زوجة ولي الله وخير الخلق بعد رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أم الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، السلام عليك أيتها الصديقة الشهيدة، السلام عليك أيتها الرضية المرضية، السلام عليك أيتها الفاضلة الزكية، السلام عليك أيتها الحوراء الإنسية، السلام عليك أيتها التقية النقية، السلام عليك أيتها المحدثة العليمة، السلام عليك أيتها المظلومة المغصوبة، السلام عليك أيتها المضطهدة المقهورة، السلام عليك يا فاطمة بنت رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلى الله عليك وعلى روحك وبدنك، أشهد أنك مضيت على بينة من ربك، وأن من سرك فقد سر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، ومن جفاك فقد جفا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، ومن آذاك فقد آذى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، صلى الله عليه وآله، ومن قطعك فقد قطع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله، لأنك بضعة من وروحه الذي بين جنبيه. أشهد الله ورسوله وملائكته أني راض عن من رضيت عنه، ساخط على من سخطت عليه، متبرئ ممن تبرأت منه، موال لمن واليت، معاد لمن عاديت، مبغض لمن ابغضت، محب لمن احببت، وكفى بالله شهيدا وحسيبا وجازيا ومثيبا. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
الله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Our discussions over these nights, and this being the final night, have been surrounding the crux of everything, of the discussion, the disputed item in life, and this has always been the leadership. Who's entitled to lead, who's entitled to be in power, and who's entitled to be listened to. Why? Not for their leadership. And this is one of the biggest problems when it comes to leadership. In our world, we look at our leaders as people that are there to be served, when the whole purpose of leadership is Sayyidul Qawm Khadimuhum, that the master of a people is their servant. That you are supposed to be serving the people, not holidaying in Hawaii every time a calamity occurs. You're supposed to be there in service to the people and to help the people and for the people. But why is it still disputed as to who God has selected? And why is it that everyone considers their understanding to be the correct one and what they are saying to be what should be accepted? Why is the concept of leadership always disputed? And what is it that differentiates between those that believe and those that try to deceive? Those that are guided and guide, and those that are deviated and deviate. And why is it necessary for us to answer the doubters? If you notice, every year, in every event, you'll find a lot of the scholars and a lot of the speakers and a lot of the people that eulogize place it upon themselves to answer the doubters. Why have I chosen imamat? Because of imamat, Fatima was the martyr of imamat, defending leadership. This is what it was about. Like I mentioned, this is the crux of everything. In borrowing a Pauline term, that imamat and the belief in imamat, if it is in vain, then our religion is in vain. Whole religion, and I'm not talking about Islam, the creation of the universe is contingent on this. Inni ma khalaqtu sama'an mabniya. Everything was created because of this leadership, these people that Allah has placed in this lofty position, because these are the most altruistic people. You want to know what pure altruism is and self-sacrifice? If you look at the life of Fatima alayha salam, from the very beginning of her life to the end, and it's a short life, 18 years, and you will see the manifestation of altruism in this. And there's no need for me to debate anything else or discuss anything else, because once I've established leadership and the existence of Islamic divinely appointed leadership, then everything follows suit. Every other rule falls into place. And there's many who cast doubt over these things every year. And we need to counter these people by showing the other side of the argument. Can imamat, the belief in imams, can it be proven using the Qur'an? And why do people attempt to conceal this? And if it can be proven in the Qur'an, why do people attempt to conceal it? And what is the point of concealing the concept of imamat. Why today? See, why is it people don't go back? For example, let's say the Muslims of today, why don't they just say, let's go back and research what happened at the time of the death of the Prophet. Let's bring it out all into the open and say, hold on, yes, you are right. Imam Ali alayhi salam is the rightful successor. These people are phony. They usurped what was not theirs. They attacked Fatima. They turned people out. They killed companions. They did all these things. And this is all wrong. And let us now follow what is right. Why don't they do that? That's another question. Now the question we'll first begin with is the 12 Imams in the Qur'an, which is something that's mentioned often. You know, when people ask you, it's one of those questions, is Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir? Is God able to do all things? Okay, and you say yes. And they say, all right, then why doesn't God prevent evil and suffering? Okay? Then they ask you, do we have to follow 12 Imams? And you say yes, and they say, then why is that not mentioned in the Holy Qur'an? These two questions, these types of questions, are called obscurities, okay, or what we call doubts. And they tend to send people into a spiral. They'll spin you around, and the reason they do this is because the one that asks these questions is so assertive, and they employ cunning and manipulation. You take a look, for example, when Richard Dawkins says to people, do you believe in, what is the punishment for apostasy in Islam? Or do you believe in a flying horse? Or do you believe in a talking snake? And he says it in a way where he's very assertive that this is something so ridiculous, I cannot believe you actually believe in this. To make you question your beliefs, yet he is so audacious when he comes up with his opinions of how life came about and how life was put together. And he says it when they first asserted the multiverse theory, which has no grounds of evidence whatsoever, not even an iota of evidence. They speak as if it is what it is. That's how things came about. But when it comes to things that they don't accept, they're so assertive in the way where they push it that this is something that should be a subject of ridicule and should be incorrect. And this ability of showing cunning and this ability where they show how to manipulate things is not something that the Muslims cannot do. It's just that the Muslims, and I'm talking about the Muslim scholars, and fear God. And because they fear God, they don't lie and deceive and manipulate the masses. Okay. They make the one listening to the question actually think that the question is in its place when it's not. And this is the problem. The problem is that the question is wrong. We say, هذا سؤال لا يكون. What do you mean the question is wrong? Consider the following. I ask you right now, do you love your child? You're obviously going to say yes. Yes, I do love my child. Okay. Why is it that you say no to your child? Why are you so mean? Why is it that you do not give your child what they ask for? You love them, right? You love them? Then do for them what they want. You love them, you should be doing everything for your child. I have made the assumption that by showing my love to my child is that I never say no to this child. And I've made the assumption also that by loving my child, that means I give them everything that they ask for. I end up with a Veruca Salt, a fictional character from Roald Dahl's book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But I come up with one of these kids that gets what they want. And that they never hear the word no. They've never heard the word no in their life. Now, if I end up measuring the love for someone's child by making a correlation between love and giving them what they want, the more I give them, the more I love them, this is a fallacious argument. This is an argument that has no truth in it whatsoever. But this is what these people are doing. In fact, this is how I ruin and I harm my child. Like I said, the new atheist makes you feel stupid if you say you believe in God. And they'll discredit you as a person. They'll discredit your qualifications even if you are a proficient and you are outstanding and accomplished in your studies, they'll discredit you if you believe in God. That this person silly enough to believe in God. Who said that because God has ability to do all things and is merciful, that he is obligated to stop evil and suffering in this world? Who said that that is the case? Question: what is this world? Is this a permanent abode? Am I here forever? Did God say that this world is a world of blessings and bounties for you to enjoy and frolic and have fun and suffer not and fear not and enjoy this world forever? No. Allah Azza wa Jal said this world is a world of trial. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. You are here and you're here to have it hard. The last 2 years people will let you know about this. People have suffered. People have had, these past 2 years have been very hard on everyone around the world. And we've got a good, Australia's got a good compared to the rest of the world. So if you reckon you have it bad here, you imagine what's happening elsewhere. Why? People say, why is the world like this? Because that's what the world's meant to be. Actually, we're getting it good. God says this world is a world of fitna. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. We will try you here. Most certainly we will try you. That will try you with hunger. We will try you with fear. We will try you with loss of wealth, loss of family, trial after trial after trial. Yeah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, how many trials? We don't get that many. But that's what you're here for. So when things are going bad, that's what's meant to happen. When things are going good, God is cutting you a break from what you're supposed to really be experiencing in this world. If God prevented evil and suffering and stopped all evil and suffering, then what's the purpose of the test? See, in Islam, we don't have intent. For example, when I was saying we don't have attempted murder in Islam. If I fire at someone, in Australian law, if you shoot at someone and you miss them, you get charged with attempted murder. If you're aiming for someone's head or chest and you miss them, it's attempted murder because you were attempting to murder. In Islam, there's no charge. In Islam, it's attempted murder if you kill them. Sorry, it's murder if you kill them, and that's a charge. So let's say God prevents any crime from taking place. On the Day of Judgment, Allah Azza wa Jal says you killed someone. You say, no, I didn't. They're still breathing. So you're here to be tried, and things are supposed to transpire, so no one has an excuse for what they are to do. And this is the purpose of the test. The next question, that was the first question used by the unbeliever. The next question is a question used by those that are against Islam, those that are against, Ahlul Bayt alayhim Islam, which is Islam. They will tell you, where are the 12 Imams written in the Qur'an? And the Wahhabi apologists and the ilk, these types of people, they will actually say, where is the 12 Imams mentioned in the Qur'an? And they'll use a hadith. They say the Usul al-Din of Ahlus Sunnah are the prayers, fasting, alms, going to pilgrimage for Hajj, and the two testimonies, the Shahadatain, the belief in God and the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. They say your beliefs are, prayers, fasting, zakat, Hajj, and they say belief in 12 Imams. And this is false. Imam Abu Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam says, Buniya al-Islamu ala khams. The Islam has been built on 5. This isn't usul al-din, don't mix the two. He says Islam has been built upon 5. He says, ala salat, upon prayers. It has been, these are the things that hold up Islam. Was zakat, paying alms. Was sawm, fasting. Wal hajj, pilgrimage. And then he doesn't say 12 Imams. He says, wal wilaya. Wilaya is talking about the leadership. They deliberately say 12 Imams because the next question they want to ask is, why aren't the 12 Imams mentioned? I'm just going to use their argument in what they say. Firstly, the hadith I said says wilaya and not 12 imams. And as for the wilaya, it's mentioned in the Qur'an. إنما وليكم الله, that verily Allah Azza wa Jal is your wali, He is your guardian, He is your master, and His messenger, ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. The ones that your wali, your guardian, your master is God and His messenger, and the ones that perform the prayers, and while they are in ruku', while they are genuflecting, they give alms. They give the alms as in ALMS. Okay, so they give the alms. Now, everyone says that this verse came upon all sects of Islam's Mufassirin. So this verse was about Ali ibn Abi Talib, Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, giving his ring in ruku' to a poor man that had entered the mosque, asked for charity. While the Imam was praying, he stuck out his pinky and the poor man took the ring. So Allah mentions this is your guidance. So this is mentioned in the Qur'an. They'll turn around and say, hold on. Why doesn't it specifically say wa Ali? Why doesn't it specifically say these are your 12 imams? There's Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Ali, Muhammad, Ja'far, Musa, Ali, Muhammad, Ali, Hassan and Mehdi. Why doesn't it say these are your 12 imams? Why doesn't it say that specifically? Okay. Allah mentions in the Quran, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةِ. Okay. Now, I want to ask these Wahhabis and their ilk, where in the Quran does it tell you how to pray? How do you pray Subh with 2 rak'at, Dhuhr with 4, Asr with 4, Maghrib with 3, and Isha with 4? Where did you get this from? Where in the Quran does it say, keeping in mind that your master Umar ibn al-Khattab said, Hasbuna kitabullah, that the book of Allah is sufficient for us. With the book of Allah, how is it that it doesn't say his tarawih in the Quran? So where did you come up with this? It's not in the Quran. So the prayers and the way you perform the prayers are not in the Quran. And the zakat, and the terms with the zakat, the rulings of zakat, show me them in specific detail in the Quran. And all the things that invalidate the fast, are they all mentioned in detail in the Quran? Of course not. Okay, does it specify the exact way to perform the Hajj in the Quran? So why is it when it comes to wilaya, the Wahhabi wants it to be specific? They want it to be taught in the way that they have taken it from our books. Why is it when it comes to wilaya, they want to be specific? Why is it for everything else they're happy with whatever they are given? The problem, this becomes a trap for those that lack understanding. They fall into this trap. Say, wow, they are right. No, this is false. Because these same people do our takfir. They say that we are unbelievers because we reject the Sahaba. Where in the Quran does it say I have to accept the Sahaba? Where in the Quran it says whoever doesn't accept the wilaya of Abu Bakr, that they are unbelievers? Where? The wilaya of Ali is mentioned in the Quran over and over again, because the Mufassirin of the Sunnah and the Shia mention this. Okay. Now when we look, we find that both the Sunnah and the Shia say that there is a need for an Imam, a leader. Both of them know this one because it's only what is right and it's only what is intelligent, that there is a need for there to be an Imam. Now, we will find, and I mentioned previously, that the Imama is mentioned in many hadith, that Rasulullah mentions hadith al-Thaqalain, the book of God and the Imams to be followed. And it is mentioned over and over again. The book of God, the Qur'an and the Imams. Over 100 companions and tabi'een. The difference between a sahabi and a tabi'i. A sahabi or a companion is someone that saw the Prophet and believed in the Prophet. A tabi' of the tabi'een are those that saw a sahabi. That there's only one link between them and the Prophet. They narrate, and these are of the Sunni scholars, not the Shia scholars. They narrate Hadith al-Ghadir, and there is over 100 of these that have narrated it, of these companions and tabi'een. But Bukhari himself conveniently overlooks this issue. Why? Bukhari is the second Qur'an for the other sect. But why does he conveniently overlook it? See, because the whole issue is not about fadak. Fatima alayhi salam came forward and used fadak as a preliminary argument that these people have usurped fadak, and you all know that fadak was mine. And then by them usurping it, and I've shown you that these people are deceitful, these people are dishonest, now let me tell you about what else they've taken. And this will bring us to the leadership. Because the leadership is not based upon, now remember I started with Adam, it's perpetual. Why do you think Cain killed Abel? Qabil killed Habil. Why would Cain kill Abel? It wasn't about a woman. It wasn't about a sacrifice to God. It was about who's next. After Adam, who's next in leadership? It's always been about leadership. It's always about power. That's why people kill people. That's why rules are taken. Because everyone is vying to be in charge. Why? Because as far as they're concerned, this leadership can be acquired. Allah Azza wa Jal says that He gives leadership and He takes leadership. Even if you usurp it, the Imam and the Caliph is always Ali ibn Abi Talib. These people that took it, they're kings. They came and usurped it. They were never caliphs. The Caliph was always Ali. Even if they're not in their position, we have a saying, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. You can pretend something is something, but it's not. The Caliphate and the Imamate has always been with them. Even when Paul took leadership after Jesus, Peter was still the one that Jesus said that he will build his church upon. So Peter was in that position. It was never Paul. And everyone that took the position that wasn't entitled was never theirs. And that's why when they call Imam Ali alayhi salam over after many years to come and take the Khilafat, to come and for an issue with the Khilafah that they have, Imam Ali is fixing his sandal. They call him, he said, I'm busy fixing my sandal. And they tell him it's for the issue of Khilafat. He says, your Khilafat is less in meaning, this leadership that you follow, has less meaning to me than fixing my sandal. That's its value. Fixing, stitching my sandal. So this dunya, this world that you follow, and you kill to take power, I'm not interested. The leadership is about the way of life that we follow. But why is it perpetual? Because if the Sahaba are exposed, the ones that usurp the Caliphate, the ones that usurp this leadership, and we showed that they were involved in all these crimes and we exposed them, everything else follows suit. In other words, all the leaders of today will be shown that they are illegitimate. And that's why they'll fight to keep this. Because when you go to Saudi Arabia, I was once there and I'm taking photos. Back in the days before we had smartphones. Talking back in the days when we actually had cameras. I was taking photos and one of the guards said, you can't take photos here. Have you not heard that the Prophet said taking photos is haram? So I said, did the Prophet use a Kodak or a Fuji or a Nokia or a Canon? What did the Prophet use? And he said, what? I said, what camera did the Prophet use back in those days? And he said, no, you can't have images of people. I said, okay, then why is every government building that I enter, banks have pictures of the kings and the actual photos? He said, they are kings, they are different. I said, in Islam, we don't have anyone's different. We have inna akramakum andallah atqakum. We have this at the front of the center here, Imam Hussein Islamic Center at the front. It actually says that verse, that the best of you to God are the ones that are the ones with the most piety, or the ones that guard against evil the most. This is the way our ranking system works. It doesn't count by how many rubies and pink diamonds I've encrusted in my crown, and how many oil rigs I own. That's not the way it works. So they have a different system, and then he says, this is your ulul amr. This is the one whom Allah has placed upon you to rule. So in other words, if I'm able to take power, then I must be obeyed. So if I was living in Stalin's Russia, I have to obey Stalin. If I was living in Hitler's Germany, I have to obey Hitler. This is what this man's telling me, that I have to follow whoever is in power. You know what's so silly about this? Then Moses should never have fought against Pharaoh. He should have just accepted his leadership. He shouldn't have taken and saved the children of Israel there. Should have just left them under the bondage and slavery of Pharaoh. Because let's think about it. How evil, is Joe Biden compared to Yazid? They're the same types of people. These people that rule today, Saddam, Biden, Trump, Obama, they're the same dictators that existed back then. Just the other ones had an Arab name. That was the difference. They were still both killing, maiming, persecuting, imprisoning people without trial. It was the same. There was no difference in this manner. And up till today, the leaders that were ruling unjustly would be overthrown if we accepted this. And that's why they have to validate the Saqifa and validate and delete this event taking place. You even have the people that claim to be followers of Ahlul Bayt, they will delete these sequence of events and say that they never took place. Now, when we take a look at this, we have narrations in Sunni text that are very specific that there will be 12 successors after the Prophet. Names them in 12. But look what the hadith says, and there's a lot of nusus for this. Okay? This is from Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sahih Tirmidhi, Sunan Abi Dawood. This hadith is mentioned in the main books of the 6 Sahihs. It mentions that while they were listening, Jabir ibn Abdullah, this is what they claim, said that he heard the Prophet saying, obviously Jabir ibn Abdullah is not the one that said this in this manner. They have written the hadith falsely because it's missing something. He says, يَكُونُ بَعْدِ 12 أَمِيرًا. He said, after me, there will be 12 leaders. What we're talking about. And then he says, فَقَالَ كَلِمَةً لَمْ أَسْمَعْهَا. Then after that, I didn't hear what he said. Conveniently, once again, as we mentioned last night, there's a part that just goes missing. So why is there a part that wasn't heard and wasn't listened to in any way? Why is it always conveniently missing? Because we have the hadith written in other books where he actually names the 12. He names them from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen all the way to Sahib al-Amr, Imam al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi arwahuna fi that. Why is it they always conveniently not hear the last bit? Okay? The one that is actually right in the hadith is very selective and conveniently omits these parts and makes sure that these parts are not present. Now, what's the purpose of the person that eliminates these parts? What do they do? Why is it that they don't mention these parts? I remembered before, and I recall before, because it affects the whole system. Because if I say that something is false, then everything falls apart. But this is what we're supposed to do. This is what justice is about. Justice in the world. Why are we suffering so much in the world today? Does everyone think about this? Why? Because of the injustice. Because the world is so unjust. Take a look at all the recent cases in court in the United States. A rich white boy took advantage of 3 girls in his house. Complete advantage. He got off scot-free because the judge, this is exactly what the judge said. This is recent. This is 2021. The judge said, when I got home, I prayed to God and I asked God. When have you ever heard a judge say this? I asked God, inside my heart, is this person worthy of going to jail or not? And God gave me the feeling that he wasn't, so I didn't place him. This is the injustice. The injustice that we see today, where the victims of crime are vilified if the perpetrator of the crime is of the elite. Now, people think Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby is not in jail. A lot of people don't know that. Bill Cosby's out scot-free. You know, there was a massive uproar recently where Tony, I know people say, this is politics. No, this is contemporary life. This is what you're living. This is the injustice you see every day. Tony Abbott was recently given knighthood. And there was a massive uproar. People said, how could you give Tony Abbott knighthood? I was shocked that people were actually complaining. What about Jimmy Savile? Britain's most prolific, look him up, Britain's most prolific child sex offender was knighted. No one ever has stripped him of his knighthood. He's still called Sir Jimmy Savile. They still have this position. They still have this status. Because all these elitists, all these high-ranking people can commit so much injustice and people will go outside and weep over them. I was once lecturing in a city outside of Sydney, and someone was upset because at the time Michael Jackson and Neverland and all this issue, because he was upset that I said something against his hero, Michael Jackson. And I said, this person is a child sex offender. And they said, how can you say this? And I said, well, firstly, he paid the child off money to silence him. You don't pay someone money to suppress them if you're innocent. Why would I silence someone with a great amount of money, big amount, lump sum of money, if I'm innocent? What's the purpose of doing that? That is guilt in the biggest form of it. You take a look, for example, where someone is innocent, they will fight it to the end and show their innocence. They will never accept it. They'll do time and they'll say, I will never accept this. They say, I'm guilty of something I didn't do. You won't sleep at night if you did this. To claim guilt for something that you're not guilty of. Now, and then repeat offend. So this injustice in the world is continuous. The rights of women today, inheritance rights, are taken because the rights of Fatima was taken. The rights of the inheritance of Fatima, the rights of women. Take a look at the oppression of women worldwide that takes place because women had no consideration by these people that attacked Fatima and Zahra. They said, we do not allow a woman to retort. How dare it? They couldn't accept that a woman would speak. Even when Sayyida Zainab alayha salam spoke in the court of Yazid, that was a big issue for them. And this remains because the injustice that continued back then that happened back then continues. So then they came, as I mentioned last night, to the house of Fatima alayha salam, and the attack took place. Why, and Taban, this is in the Majlis, why is it they would then come and they would arrest Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and take him to them to give allegiance? Now think about it. If I put a gun to your head and I cause you to do something that you don't believe in, say for example I tell you, you must support me or else I'll kill you. And you support me because there's a gun to your head. Is it validated? When Ammar ibn Yasir, they had tortured his father, Yasir, and they tortured his mother, Sumayya, until they died. And then they said, if you do not disbelieve in God, we will kill you with them. So he proclaimed that he doesn't believe in God, and he returned to Rasulullah and he was weeping. And he said, oh Rasulullah, I denounced God because of the pressure. And then Rasulullah had a revelation come to him from Allah. The verse that says, إِلَّا مَنْ أُقْرَهِ, except the one that has been compelled and forced, وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ, yet they are full of faith. So if I've coerced someone to do something, this isn't real. With Amir al-Mu'mineen, even then he wasn't coerced. They had tied his arms. They held a sword to him to force him to give allegiance. He still didn't give allegiance. What did they do instead? And this is so disturbing that they actually got the hand of Abu Bakr and they placed it next to the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen, lifted the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen and wiped it on the hand of Abu Bakr while it was tied, and they said, look, he has given allegiance. No allegiance took place. You know, all it was Abu Bakr touching the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and by force, in fact, the Imam's hands were tied, and to show you how willing this whole episode took place. But it had to happen like this, so everyone could see the injustice. And then you look at the cover-up. People were silent. Even to the point Those that were around the Prophet, stood by the Prophet, had fled. Some fled Medina, didn't want to be involved. Some were with Osama. Some of them had went with the army of Osama. So they returned, and it was already the state of the situation was even Osama went to the other side, believe it or not. When he returned, he followed the other team. This is what happened. People just follow suit. You see them, one day they're on the good side, and then they go to the dark side. Then they turn away from what is right because they say to themselves, I can't be the only one. Even though Amir al-Mu'mineen, Salamullah alayhi, said, لا تستوحش طريق الهدى لقلة أهله. Do not fear the path of guidance due to the small amount of its adherents. You look at what's right, follow what's right. And that's what you're accountable for. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to tell you on these nights, entering paradise, people might come up and ask what happens to an Eskimo in Greenland, what happens to a huntsman in Kalahari. I use examples all the time, so I always get asked these questions. What happens to someone that did not see or know? The thing is, I want to let you know, no one is punished if they don't know. This is a fact. God says this. You can't be punished if you're ignorant. But if you do know, and who knows if I know or I don't know? I do. I can't tell you about other people. I'll tell you about myself. I know for a fact if I became a follower of the other team, I would go to hell. Why? Because I can see the truth. It's as clear as the daylight when you go outside in midday. It's clear as daylight that the truth is as it is. But if someone that doesn't know, they have to investigate and find out in their life. And what they discover is what they actually follow. It's your duty to discover whether the attack on the house of Fatima alayhi salam took place or did not take place. And you'll find, without a shadow of doubt, that it did take place. No doubt whatsoever. What you will find, the obscurities that exist, are the details. You can't say just because, for example, like you have like David Irving, those Holocaust deniers, people that don't believe that the attacks and the concentration camps that the Nazis had they believe they didn't happen. You ask them why, they say, well, the numbers have been augmented. It could not be possible that there were 6 million Jews. The numbers have been made too big, and there's the lack of evidence because this or that. And you say, hold on. Just because there are obscurities with the details, just because there's a political agenda in the details, it does not mean the event didn't take place. You cannot negate an event because some of the details, because no event is dictated as it happened. Even today, you have an event takes place, every news channel reports the event differently. It depends who's reporting the event and whether it affects them or not. For example, take a look at Saudi Arabia. When Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr was killed, no one mentioned anything about it, especially Jamal Khashoggi. He said that Sheikh Nimr, who was murdered, listen to this, was murdered for giving a political opinion. All he said was the king at the time, Naif, Mohammed ibn Naif, the prince at the time, his father Naif, when he died, all Sheikh Nimr said, look at him, he's in his grave now, and the worms are eating his body. Because of this, they decapitated him. And Khashoggi was one of the first people to accept this and say he was worthy. No one of the journalists hit out on this. But when Khashoggi was killed, subhanallah, he accepted this injustice, then something happened to him, and he was killed in the most horrific way. And all the journalists suddenly said, Saudi Arabia is unjust. What about all these years, this long war on Yemen, and you've been so silent now that you speak out? The injustice that exists, and the people remain silent about this. They don't speak about this injustice. They don't come forward and mention anything about the injustice that takes place. So anyway, after this, Fatima alayha salam has not finished her role. She begins to weep over and over again. Why? Because she wants people to know. Remember, no one went to the house of Fatima to give her condolences for her father dying. Have you ever heard of this? Do you imagine the greatest creation of God, Rasul Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, is killed, he's poisoned, he's murdered, and no one afterwards, anyone at all, comes to give their condolences to Fatima alayhi salam. In fact, the only visit they make to her house is to set fire to her house. Imagine that. These are Muslims. These are Muslims, actual Muslims. You actually look, if I was to tell you Islamic history, I say the Prophet was poisoned by Muslims, killed by Muslims. His daughter's house was set alight. Her rib was broken. She was attacked. Her child was miscarried. And then her child, the grandchild of the Prophet, many years later, one of them would have their body showered with arrows when they go to bury in Medina, and the next one would be killed thirsty by Muslims. You'd think, hold on, are they Muslims? And Zainab says this on the day of Ashura. She said, Ama fikum Muslim? Is there not a Muslim amongst you? Did you allow this to take place? No one would believe that it was Muslims that did all this. Yet, all the Muslims say, yes, this is what happened and took place. So where is the biggest stance of Fatima? It says, Oh Ali, when you bury me, people bury the dead, we bury them in a day. Everyone knows we bury them in a day. Number one. Number two, we bury them where their loved ones know where they are and they can visit them. He said, Oh Ali, firstly, I do not want any of those that oppressed me present for my burial. Bury me at night. I do not want my grave to be known. This is her stance. So when you go to Medina, you enter Medina and you see the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You see the graves of the Imams, the wives of the Prophet, the companions of the Prophet. Some of those that fought in Badr and Uhud are buried in Baqiyah. You even see the grave of who? Ibrahim, the 18-month-old of Rasulullah. Where is the grave of the 18-year-old of Rasulullah? Where is the grave of Fatima alayhi salam? This is the objection, this is the protest of Fatima. So that when I go to Medina, I say this is Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah. This is her stance. The daughter of the Prophet, that all Sunnah and Shia say was the greatest woman on this earth, the greatest woman in paradise. Her grave is unknown. Why? Her grave is not known as to where it's about. Why is the question? This is her protest at the very end. And that you can even find in Sahih Bukhari that the Prophet has said that whoever angers Fatima angers me. And then you will find that Fatima died while she was angry at Abu Bakr. She never forgave them. This is your case closed as to who was in the right and who was in the wrong. The anger of Rasulullah is the anger of Allah. And Allah was angry at Abu Bakr. The lady of heaven, the lady of the women of heaven, the one that's above all in paradise, was angered at Abu Bakr and Umar until the day that she died. Mind you, do not think these 3 nights that I spent were sectarian discussions. I know 95, if not 100% of the ruwayat, the majority of the ruwayat I used was Sunni ruwayat. So if it's sectarian in your opinion, then you have a problem with the Sunni books, not with me. Because all the narrations I used, anyone can make contact with the center, and inshallah, I'll provide you with the authentic. For any narration that you might find dubious, I will show you that it exists and its whereabouts. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us on these nights, and due to Fatima, we are granted the intercession of Fatima. May Allah have mercy on all the deceased of those that are present, our dear brothers and sisters that are here, and their parents that we mentioned, some of the the families of these people. May Allah have mercy upon them. We've also been requested to recite the Fatiha for Al-Hajj Maryam Jubaili Hijazi, the wife of Hajj Fawzi, and the deceased of all those that have participated in the center, their families, for all of them and all the believers and those that shed a tear over Fatimah al-Zahra alayhi salam. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy upon them, and for them we all recite the Surah Al-Fatiha with Salat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى آلك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء ويا قتيل العدا، ما خاب من تمسك بكم أمنا من التجا إلى حسنكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله، السلام عليك يا بنت نبي الله، السلام عليك يا بنت حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا بنت خليل الله. يا صاحب الزمان، where should we go to visit our grandmother? Should we go to Jannatul Baqi? Should we go to Masjid al-Nabi? Tell us, Ya Imam. Ya Zahra, You have joined your father, Rasulallah. You have reunited with your baby, Muhsin. Brothers and sisters, now Imam Ali carries out the will of Sayyidah Zahra. He tells Salman to tell the people that the funeral of Fatima has been postponed. When the night was silent, the Imam took the body of his wife while he would weep. Every time he moved the body of Al-Zahra, he would hear a cry coming from her chest. Salman sees Imam Ali fall back crying. He says, "Oh Master, you order us to be patient, yet you're tearful with sorrows." The Imam replied, "No, Salman, when I was washing her body, my hands ran over her chest. Something did not feel right. As my hand ran over her chest, I felt her broken ribs, Ya Salman. I could see the bruises on her arms." Imam Ali washed and shrouded the body with tears in his eyes. When he came to tie the final knot, he called for Hassan, Hussein and Zainab. Imam Hassan went to his mother's right. Imam Hussein went to her left. Imam Hassan said, "Oh my mother, speak to me." Imam Hussein said, "Oh my dear mother, speak to me before we leave you. You have never refused any of our requests." Imam Ali said at that time, "By Allah, I witnessed the kafan open. Al-Zahra brought forward both her hands and hugged her children. He said he heard a cry from the heavens saying, 'Ya Ali, please remove the children from the body. They have made the angels in heaven weep.'" He took the kids away and he started to lower her body. Imagine you are at the funeral of Sayyidah Fatima. Imagine Imam Ali lowering the body of his wife. "Oh my dear, who fades away, while I cover you where you lay. Rise and see the hair of your children's father turn gray. After you, Ya Zahra, we saw dark days. Our children weep, missing their mother's face." Listen to what Amir al-Mu'mineen says. "Every time I come, Hassan or Hussein, the other begins to cry. My orphan Zainab follows me during the night with tearful eyes, asking, 'Where is my mother? Where did you take her? while you visit her, or go feed the poor, I still fear they will return and set our door alight. Imam Ali would visit her grave while the children are sleeping. He says, I sneak out quietly while the children are asleep. I visit your grave during the night. I carry my sorrows and weep. I cannot stay here long, the orphans are alone. If it wasn't for your children, I never would go home. My beloved wife Fatima, would you please talk to me? I'm sorry I wasn't there when you called out, Ya Ali. Now I'm here, oh Fatima, washing your holy body. For the ceremony, how can I prepare when from the tears I can't see? I can't dig the grave, I can't carry you. So how do you want me to bury you? Listen to Zainab. Listen to what Zainab says, brothers and sisters. Mother, these nights without you are dark and I lose sleep. Our house full of torment and painful memories I keep. Imam Ali hugs her to console her. She points at something. He asks her, what are you pointing at, oh child of mine? She looks at her father and points to the door, saying, you remove the door of Khaybar. Remove this, I cannot bear to look at it anymore. Imagine the pain and loneliness of Imam Ali after the passing of his wife. He used to sit beside her grave and cry. He says, I lost Rasulullah, and now I've lost you. When Imam Ali put Sayyidah Fatima in her grave, when he undid the shrouds to open her face and put it on the soil, Ya Allah, when he opened the shroud, he started to cry. Do you know why he is crying? When he opened the shroud, he saw the bruises on the face of Fatima. Wa Fatima. He said, Ya Fatima, now I know why you wanted me to bury you at night. At that moment, Asma narrates that Imam Ali turned towards the grave of Rasulullah. He cried out, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. Here is the trust that you gave me. I am now returning it to you. Ya Zahra, you were trapped behind the door. Your ribs were broken. What about the ribs of Aba Abdullah? When the horses were trampling over his body, Ya bint Rasulullah, You had bruises on your body. You had bruises on your face. What about the bruises on Zainab? How they whipped her. She had bruises all over her body. Ya Zahra, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين.
لله نعشون للبتولة قد سرى بسريره سر الخليقة سيرا يا حاملين عرش البتولة فاطمة رفقان بأعضاء مقتحة العراء يا نعش فاطمة فترتاح شاشتي ففؤادها بجواي المصاب تفتر يا نعش فاطمة تراك علمت إذ حملت يا ناموس الوجود ليقبر فبعثرها بالبياب أسقط محسنا والضلع منها عن ذاك تكسرا أو ما درى المسمار يوم أصابها نعم قام الإمام بتغسيلها وكانت تساعده على ذلك أسماء بنت عميس وبينما هو يغسلها من وراء الثوب تقول أسماء كنت أساعد عليه خرجت من الحجرة وعدت إلى علي وجدت عليا أخذ ناحية من الحجرة وضع رأسه بين ركبته وصار ينشج نشيجا عاليا قالت له يا أبا الحسن أتأمرنا بالصبر وأنتم تشجعون؟ لا يا أسماء، لا لا لا، الصبر جميل وليس على مثل فاطمة جميل. قال لا يا أسماء، وإن عز علي فراقها، ولكن مرت يدي على بدنها ورأت أضلاع من ضلوعها مكسورة وجنبيها قد اسود من ضرب السياد. أين المنادي وفاطمة؟ قوموني وانسي حيدرا، يبكي ضلوع مكسرة، عالمغتسل دمعه جرى، بالدمع غسل فاطمة. شافت ضلوع منها انهشام، شاف الوجه خدها اللطام، دمعة على ذي الانسجام، يا ويل الذلع مهشمة. لك فدوى روحي والعمر يسحب فراقك والصبر، تخفي ألم ذلع وكسر، شو هالمصيبة المؤلمة. ولما تم غسلها وكفنها، وقبل أن يعقد الكفن صاح يا حسن يا حسين يا زينب، هلموا وتزودوا من أمكم فاطمة. أقبل يتامى الزهراء ورموا بنفسهم على بدن أمهم، والحسن يقول أمي كلميني لقد قطعتني قلبي، والحسين ينادي أمه كلميني قبل خروج روحي من بدني. يقول أمير المؤمنين والله رأت فاطمة عنات وحنات وارفع يديها واحتضنا الحسن والحسين وقبلهم، فسمعت صوتا من السماء يقول نحى الحسنان، فلقد والله أبكيا ملائكة السماء. خلينا نحرج على ذكرى الحسين، لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله. أمير المؤمنين بساعة تغسيل جثمان الزهراء ما رأى من بدنها الإمام يترك جسد ويجلس زاوية من الدار يبكي. يا أبا الحسن لشفت في بدن الزهراء ضلع واحد، إذا بكيف بك يا سيدي يا أمير المؤمنين. لو رأيت أضلاعون تطحن على الحيل بحوافر الخيل من ولدك الحسين. ضلع واحد يا علي وحد حيلك جاذل وحسين شو تسوي لك؟ تقل ضلع واحد يا علي وحد حيلك جاذل وحسين شو تسوي لك؟ حيدر حيدر يا حيدر ايدك مرت على ضلع البتول البتول ومرت على ذنوب اليمة الخيول. ليش يا مغسل المظلوم نقول ما جبت الحسين من تغسيله؟ حيدر حيدر يا حيدر ضلع واحد يا علي وحد حيلك جاذل وحسين شو تسوي لك؟ حيدر حيدر يا حيدر يا علي على الزهرة قلبك منفجع وذلوها دموم هلت الدمع. شلون بيك وكربلاء مبذلة ضلوع ظلت يا علي تميلك؟ حيدر حيدر يا حيدر إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Brothers and sisters, on this night we would like to ask by Sayyidah Zahra Salamullahi alayha, by the pain of Amir al-Mu'mineen, heal all those that are sick from your Shia. Let's recite 5 times ayah amma yujib. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Amma yujibu al-muztarra idha da'a wa yakshifu as-su'. 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 For all the marhumin and marhumat, specifically for brother Ahmed Yusuf Qubaisi and Haji Maryam Hijazi, if we can recite a Fatiha, but before it aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا